The rand fell to a staggering 13-year low against the dollar this week after investors sold off emerging market currencies ahead of the heightened expectations that there will be an interest rate hike in the United States by June of this year. Meanwhile, the dollar rose to an 11-year high against the world's major currencies. Now, joining us today is the head of market and economic research at Investment Solutions, Lesiba Mothata, who will be here to give us his views on what is concerning for some. Are you concerned about this 13-year low against the dollar that came out this week?
It is coming in a time that is not opportune for our country. We had this relief from low oil prices that has been sapped by taxes, and now the rand
few levies.
Yeah, a few levies. So that the rand is adding to this inflationary situation we have. If you looked at the inflation and you took out, you looked at just it excluding electricity, food, etc., it remained elevated. So with a weak rand, you're going to see that the impact of inflation is going to come back to the table for conversation, which means that as you've seen throughout the globe, central banks are cutting rates. That's not an option now in our country for that reason.
Now, Lesiba, I read a report, and as we do, we read all kinds of snippets. I read a report that said more than 50% of the South African consumer is debt stressed. That means they are almost 3 months in arrears of paying their debts, and we are well over indebted as well. Within this context, how does that play out?
Yeah, so it's problematic. In fact, in the speech, the minister highlighted that, for example, in some sectors, in the public sector, people are cashing in the pension in order to pay down debt. It's a problem, and the middle class is stressed. The taxes haven't helped. Unfortunately, where we are now, we cannot grow faster than we have seen, around 2.5% this year. So we're going to have weak growth, and we're going to have situations of our current account widen further, because that oil price has gone up and the rand has depreciated. So you're going to get a situation where the current account remains under pressure, will cause the rand to be under pressure, which will mean inflation is elevated, which will mean interest rates can go down. The hawkish rhetoric that came out of the SAB may be reinstated, although not now, perhaps later on. But if the US hike rates in June, that will also be another factor that could add to tightening policy.
We see pictures here of unemployment, employable men and women sitting on the streets looking for piecemeal jobs, others collecting recyclable material, petrol price increases, and so forth. I want to look at the outlook, and I always ask you when you're here, the magic pill. There isn't a magic pill. I always get abused by the green people that I'm pro-fracking. But fracking can add that boost to our economy that can see us fight the high levels of unemployment content. How do you view this?
Yeah, so there's clever people that have made studies, and they've shown that there could be environmental harm that can be done from that strategy.
Do we save the fynbos, or do we save the people of South Africa? Is the question, Lesiba.
So there was cost benefits, and what you find is that if you were to do that, it will contribute to lowering unemployment, and many other things. The only problem is that our policies now, they're not pro-growth, right? We hike taxes. We still haven't made decisions on what should happen around the Karoo in that front. And we will perpetually be in a low growth environment. I'm afraid to say that this situation we found unemployment being high, it's going to live with us for a while.
That's a rather sobering thought on this note. But let's talk about what we need to do then to arrest this year. What measures do we need to put in place to deal with the rand, firstly?
See, the rand is left for the markets to be determined, so the SAB can't intervene to make it stronger. But if you looked at how, if you just value the rand on any measure, you'll find that it's excessively oversold. In other words, it's too weak. And it needs to pull back into a fair value. And if you just did that, you'll find that the rand will have to pull back from where it's from where it's at, unless we get a growth crisis, or we get labor unrest that actually eat out on the growth outlook on our country. But on the median, on the middle ground, what should happen? It should pull back from where it's been oversold.
Now, the middle classes are complaining and they are constrained and they say they're being squeezed. What's your advice to especially the middle classes here in South Africa?
Yeah, so we can't add more debt from where we are. We need to be paying down debt, because if you get a crisis in our country, and think of what happened in Russia.
Yeah.
The Monetary Policy Committee met in one time and they hiked rates to 6.5% in one meeting. So if you get a crisis in our country, the rand goes to 14 and it forces the monetary policy authorities to move. You may actually even get higher interest rates in an environment of higher taxes. And that is not very good for those who are in debt.
Yes. Well, so pay your debt. That's what they always say. Save money and pay your debt. Thank you, Lesiba. That's Lesiba Mothata, who is the head of market and economic research at Investment Solutions, always giving his sobering thoughts.